Welcome to Loup TV. I'm Gene along with Andrew for Tuesday, March 8th. We have an easy topic today. That, of course, is Apple's peak performance event, where they unveiled two upgraded products with the iPhone SE along with iPad Air, and two new products with Mac Studio and Studio Display. And I'm going to bring you in right away, Andrew. And sometimes it's annoying when people talk about how long they've worked together, or how many times they've done events. So we're not going to go there, but safe to say we've been through this before. What was your reaction?
Well, let's take it back to the high level. We could rattle through all the new products and give insights. Maybe we'd do that later, but I kind of stepped back throughout the event and thought, what do these products and what does this approach say about Apple? One thing is that the events have become so dialed in, it feels like almost too much, maybe. It's lost that cult gathering feel, right? That the in-person events sometimes have with the press and sometimes event goers, conference goers meeting all together, the buzz, the excitement. And I would love to help see if they could figure out some way to get back that feel that brings more community to the Apple user base.
Is that a criticism on how they're doing these events, or is it just an acknowledgement of the world that we're in?
A little bit of both. I think they've done a stellar job adapting to the circumstances of these events and making it into perhaps maybe a better selling tool for a broader audience. At the same time, that cult is important to Apple and their ethos and culture. And so I think it's important to maintain that, or somehow figure out a way to do that virtually. Not easy task.
Yeah, my sense is that you're kind of caught between it's entirely on this is just the world that we live in. Imagine if they dialed it back a little bit and took the production value down, and I think that would be a mistake. And separately, I think it would be a mistake if they said, well, let's, instead of doing 4 events a year, let's do 2 per year, and maybe hold off on some product announcements, maybe just do them on the website. That would be the counter. You just do kind of a stealth. But I think for investors, that would not serve the purpose. I mean, part of what Apple has is an invitation. I mean, here we are talking about it. Maybe people are talking about them less than they did 5 years ago, but it's still getting attention, and still, I think, serves a purpose around building awareness of their products.
Definitely, probably more attention just because of the streaming platform that they've built. And
that's right.
Apple TV Plus, and how everybody can watch it on their Apple TV or anywhere you happen to be. Really, they've made it available everywhere. But the next thing that struck me was just Apple Silicon. It's every product, every announcement, and they're pitching it to pros, right? The Mac Studio, but even the Studio Display has an A13 chip in it for all these fancy hardware, software features. It's such a huge advantage. And even though they pitch it to pros, I think it makes a difference across the entire range of the product portfolio, and makes a huge difference for every user with faster devices than the competing product.
It is the gift that keeps giving, a vertical integration. It's something that obviously Android can't do this. They can do it, I guess, with kind of Pixel phones, but for the most part, yeah, you just can't. No other company can quite pull it off. Samsung, not really. Microsoft, no. And I think that it's one of those things that we've been talking about for a long time. Importance of vertical integration. You kind of see it today. I appreciate you pointing it out, because it is one of those things that when you look at it, when it's right in front of you, I don't think you understand the significance of it. And, kind of begs the question of, why isn't there more adoption? If this is so great, why isn't there more adoption? My sense is it's still expensive initial price point for Apple products relative to competition. The total cost of ownership is ultimately less owning Apple products when you factor in downtime and viruses and just kind of slow productivity around waiting for your computer. So I suspect that I know that it is a better value proposition ultimately, but that's a hard thing understandably, for a lot of people to get over. That was your second. Was there any other ones you wanted to add before we jump through the products?
Well, you touched on the fact that this hardware software integration is so good, it kind of leaves me scratching my head. Why do more people not use these devices, which are so clearly that much better? And you hit on it. It's a higher entry level price point. There's maybe a perception that it's more expensive or that the value isn't there. But you also saw them address that with things like the iPhone SE, where they talked about more new iPhone users coming to the platform in the 13th generation than any other generation before it. So they're doing something right. They know it's a slow rolling tide. They know it's a long-term investment in a growing platform. And I wonder, what could they do, like the big jump in Apple Silicon? What else could they do to accelerate that tide?
Well, hold on that thought for a minute. We'll kind of jump into the SE. What jumped out to me was this. So it's a 5G enabled iPhone SE. They still have the Touch ID, the old school button, if you like that. The entry level price bumped up by 8%. Not surprising given everything that's going on that they would raise the price of that, but it still is always noteworthy when they do such. And I suspect that about 15% of total iPhone dollars revenue coming for iPhone comes from the SE family, and I think that we're talking about 7-8% of total Apple's business. So it's material, it's measurable, it's the right time to put it in the March event. And I think one piece that's been important is the SE's been around for 6 years. And we really didn't see much of a change in iPhone's global market share until it just kind of hovered around that 18%, up a little bit some quarters, down a little bit some quarters, until the last couple of years. And I think this shift, this accelerating digital transformation has improved that. Different groups have different numbers, but roughly it's gone from 18 to 20%, which lines up with some of the comments that you just had about the number of users. So it feels to me that what's in play here is they've got a product at the low end that captures that price point. But what's really driving the iPhone franchise is maybe people are starting to kind of the light turning on and understanding that even though these products might be a little bit more expensive up front, that, in a world where we're relying on ourselves a little bit more for tech, that it makes sense to spend a little bit more to have that comfort. What's your take?
Well, it strikes me that this may be the answer to the discussion we were just having. And Apple's done a great job riding the cost curve down on certain pro level components like the 5G chip or a great front facing camera. The other features that they're packing into this are insane for a $429 device. So what they've done is they've taken those pro level components, ridden the cost curve down over time, get volume discounts and everything they do, the Tim Cook philosophy, operations driven magic. What they're doing with this device is really smart, I think. And every few years, they get to a point where they can make a huge leap forward at the bottom of the range with the iPhone SE. And I think it will do something in terms of catalyzing adoption for iPhone and answering that question that we were talking about earlier.
Let's move on to the new iPad Air. To me, this was a little bit of as expected, added 5G, kept the same price point. I felt like one of the reasons why they didn't raise the price is because they didn't want to come across as price gougers here. I could see that thread getting some momentum. Keep in mind, we track availability lead times of different Apple products. Just the core iPad, not the iPad Air, the basic iPad has been delayed for a long time, long lead times, 45 days for most of the past 3 months. More recently, it's dropped down to 30 days. I checked it just before we went on air here. It's a similar time frame. And so I suspect that this product is going to quickly go to 3-4 weeks lead time. If you're curious, as of today, you can still order one and get it March 10th. But I think that will probably kind of fade away here. And so from my perspective, the iPad Air was kind of a non-event. It was just kind of filling out that product line. Did it mean more to you?
No, I agree. It's a bit of a tweener. And each of these events, they kind of reshuffle the lineup a little bit and tweak. It's like a marketing case study on how to develop a product line and hit every customer where they want to be hit. I find a ton more value in the iPad product. The iPad Air for 600
Yeah.
bucks seems like a lot of money for a non-pro device, and the iPad is much better value and you're seeing that in your lead time checks that you're doing.
Love it. They did announce two new products, that being Mac Studio and Studio Display. And these come at the same time where they discontinued the 27-inch iMac. So just as a baseline here, the 27-inch iMac was used by some pros. They are, talking about this as that was used by some pros. It was, call it $1,800 starting point. We'll talk about this in combination because I think that was what really stuck out to me. If you take the two new products, which are pretty powerful, very powerful, much more powerful than the 27-inch iMac, you take those two, the display plus the Mac, and it comes out to be $5,500. If you compare that to the Mac Pro before and the Pro Display XDR, I think it is, the starting price is $11,000. That was not a misprint there. And so effectively what they're doing is kind of pulling away that low end iMac option. There's no more 27-inch iMac period, and kind of forcing the pros. And I think this product is directed at pros. I absolutely agree with you, is that the messaging on the other products, when they talk about chips, they talk about pros a lot, but it's really directed to the everyday person getting excited about a faster product. But in this case, it's directed at the pros. And one last piece before I turn it over to you. If you look at the total revenue here, Mac accounts for about 10% of total revenue. The pro segment is about 2% of that. So we're about 2% of total revenue. So in aggregate, we're looking at that 1-2% of revenue in play here. What was your take on it?
Well, I think here you see them optimizing for features, performance, and sort of price last. There was a fascinating and awesome display or graphic that they showed showing the M1, the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, and then the M1 Ultra, and it looks like a bar chart. And it makes you want to say, like, wow, I need that like double performance. And they're charging for it, right? That's a $2,000 or a $4,000 computer. But I was texting with some creative pro friends about this. They use a Mac Pro today, and they're eager to bust out their credit cards and pony up for the $4,000 machine here and the new display. They just want the best that Apple can give them because they know that it's the best on the planet today. So I think price comes last in this market. They know it, and they're just tightening on the spring.
Makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, the display, I missed this point. Do you know if you can actually focus or zoom in and out on the camera on the display?
Well, it does have the center stage technology, which automatically focuses and zooms in when you're in FaceTime. But if you were doing Skype or Zoom, I don't think that feature applies. And I'm not sure if you can manually focus the camera, which is, I think, what you're asking about.
That is what I'm asking about. I think I asked for that feature when they came out with the new 24-inch iMacs, and it doesn't sound like we're still getting it here. Patience is a virtue, and you've been patient on this episode, Andrew, because I buried the lead throughout this whole thing, is that I want you to take a victory lap as best you can in the Loup studio over there, because yesterday on Loup TV, you predicted, I hadn't seen, actually, I think a few weeks ago on Loup TV, before anyone was talking about this, you predicted that Apple would do a deal with Major League Baseball, and here we have it. It's Friday night baseball. I didn't know there was such a thing. Apparently there are two premier games every Friday night. As a reminder, is MLB in terms of total like ad revenue is about consistent with the NBA. Of course, there's more dates, more games with MLB, but they're both a step below a big step below the NFL. Wish I had harder numbers on this, but you get the picture. What was your take?
Well, the headline here is live sports are coming to Apple TV Plus. And my question then is, what next? We talked yesterday about Formula One or the NFL Sunday ticket package. Those would be huge wins and exciting. Sunday ticket, much more than Formula One. But either way, they've scratched the surface here. I think it's a starting point. I'm excited to see what kind of production level they bring to live sports and see where they can take it from here. But it's great to see live sports as a part of Apple TV Plus. And just a reminder that they are going for live streaming full throttle.
Yeah, that was also my sense beyond the sports when I think Tim had talked about they should have preview a bunch of stuff going at me. I don't understand Hollywood, so I recognized Tom Hanks in there. That was about the extent of it. But seemed like a lot more content coming, and it just takes time to go from the beginning of Apple TV Plus, which is, call it 4 or so years ago, I think, and to where it is today. You can just kind of sense that momentum building, and it would be a big momentum boost if they did add the NFL. And as many of you know, is that Amazon has done that on Thursday Night Football. They pay $1 billion per year for 12 games, and I think that's a 10-year deal. And so wouldn't be surprised if Apple starts to flex its muscle and start spending a little bit more on content. Amazon's expected to spend around $15 billion this year, Netflix around $20 billion. I think Apple is loosely expected to be around $10 billion. So still room to go, which to me says we got a deep checkbook, and stay tuned for NFL.
There's a few things money can't buy, but content isn't one of them. And Apple's just shelling out for great content. You can buy Best Picture nominations. You can buy the most coveted live sports. You can buy top tier feature films, and they're doing it.
Well, I am going to go there, as we have worked 15 plus years together on Apple, and you crank out the best content on Apple. Thanks for joining. On behalf of Andrew, Gene, and Loup TV, bye for now.